Welcome to Inspire Me Forward. My name is Linda J. Watson, and I am the founder and host of this beautiful series of conversations. This is a space where guests from all walks of life and every corner of the world share their stories. We talk about life, love, and everything in between. And now we are on season 7. Before we dive in, I would like to share that the topics discussed in this season may be sensitive in nature and triggering to some. Please do take care of yourself and seek support as and if needed. So, the title of this group of episodes is Positive Foundations for When Life Throws a Time Shift. There are times in our lives when our relationship with time changes. Sometimes it's a slow burn, sometimes a U-turn. Your perspective of time might evolve into a space where you value it more. Perhaps it speeds up, or maybe it slows down. However you are affected, life does throw time shifts. And in those moments, we are called to look for positive foundations, resources that help us hold our bearings and tend to our resiliency, helping us stay grounded and not float away altogether. This season, we will speak with folks who have experienced those time shifts and stayed upright through the dynamic force, the change, and the landing. We will discuss what kept them standing. What did they hold on to so they could settle in to that new time perspective with a gentle heart and feet firmly on the ground? Welcome to season 7 of Inspire Me Forward. Let's talk time shifts. But before we introduce our guest today, let's take a moment of quiet to land in this space. Let our day go for just a while and be present for the wisdom that is offered in this episode. All right. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. And this is our 49th episode. How exciting is that? Coming up on our 50th. And I'm so excited tonight to talk to somebody that I've known for some time through work and not working there either of us anymore. But yeah, it's so nice to reconnect and be able to talk and get to know each other. So my guest is Terra Mitchell. And Terra, I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Linda. Thanks for having me and inviting this evening. So, as you had mentioned, we've known each other for quite some time. I now, in this life versus our old lives of Canadian Red Cross. So, my name's Terra Mitchell. I am a holistic practitioner slash facilitator owner. My business name is 911 Yourself Holistic Wellness. So I mastered cortisol and stress, and now I'm master in wellness and self-care and loving every minute of it.
I can see the bridge between the two. That's awesome.
Exactly.
And so we will definitely get into that. So before we jump in, and where are you located? Just for those that are listening from elsewhere in the world, you are
Yeah, so I'm located in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada,
awesome, awesome.
my hometown.
Not too far from Toronto.
No, about an hour and a half.
Yeah. So the whole season is about time and how time shifts for all of us Sometimes it's a quick shift. Sometimes it's a drawn out, a little more drawn out shift. But time always shifts for us. And I heard something the other day on it was on a CBC show. Um, it was a gentleman um, that wrote a book, and I think it's called Horses. It was a poetry book. I will find that, and I will post that, and I'll post I'll share the interview too. But he talked about time, and it was about the fact that time, we can see time in so many ways, and time is our daily lives, our tasks. Oh, I'm late for this, or this is taking too long, and all those little intricacies of time being in our daily lives. Yet we can look at a cliff face or an old growth forest, and there's time there too. And somebody was showing me some fossils, beautiful fossils they had found the other day. And I was so taken back from what I had heard and looking at these fossils and go, that's time as well. It's this larger, zoomed out picture of time and millions of years. And
And the
it's like,
growth, probably. Yeah.
yeah, it's just this dichotomy of where do we where are we on this circular continuum of time? So just putting that in there, that it's such a uh yeah, it's such a deep
It
subject.
flies by. It really, really does. It
Yeah,
does.
it's true too. Or
There's
there's
not
times when
enough
it can draw
hours in a
on.
day, and it flies by for sure.
Exactly, exactly. So let's dig in, and I am going to give you the floor for the first while to
Sure.
talk about some or one or however many you wish of the catalysts in your life that really changed your trajectory. Because in changing the trajectory, we change our thoughts on time. So I will leave you the floor and off you go.
Sure, thanks. Well, I think it's a very thought-provoking start, right? I mean, time can mean so many to so many different people, different perceptions. The trajectory for me, I mean, it changed a few times. You know, in my younger years, I went from a rural community growing up and then moved into the city of Peterborough. So there was, change management pieces looking back, different friends and everything else, and a different lifestyle, different growing up and so forth. And then, you go into your 20s and it changes again, and time for college and time for jobs and time for adulthood. And I turned 50 this year, and I really, really look back at, retiring at from an industry of 25 years. That's probably my biggest trajectory for change and for time. And if I was to pinpoint everything up until then, I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to be with helping and saving and serving others, from waitressing to a 911 operator, then as an emergency planner for almost 20 years with the Canadian Red Cross. And when I left that hat in 2023, that's where everything shifted for me. It was an awakening of what I'd gone through. You kind of just go in pilot mode, um, and you just are day to day, and you put on your pants and you put on your uniform if you've got it, whatever it is, and then you just go about every single day. And I literally feel sometimes like, it's back in 2007 when I first started with there. I can still remember the first shirt that I wore to my interview, and I can remember the very first response that I ever went on, the first family that I ever helped, and my first evacuation center that I ever opened. And you think back into 25 years of emergency services and emergency management, and then life changes and time changes again. You're in your late 40s, the career's over, and you are like, well, what's next? What's now? And you didn't really I didn't know what I didn't know. And I just started healing, and I just started figuring out life choices and where am I going to go next. And I tease all the time and I say, you know what, I just haven't figured out what I want to be when I grow up. And 50 is the new 30, we'll say. And and that's what it's been for me since I left that point in my life. I've been through a lot. Like, you can imagine the calls that I probably dispatched, and I can still feel the calls, helping a family that just left a burning house or, a flooded community. Didn't matter what part of Canada I was in. I can remember being in British Columbia. I can remember being in St. John's, Newfoundland. I can remember being up in Thunder Bay numerous times, or Saskatchewan, and helping Indigenous families and so forth. So, when you stop being of service for others in a professional capacity, and you then are faced to look at yourself. And that was a game changer. It was like, holy cow, who am I? What have I been doing? What did I do? Where am I going? And I didn't know what was up. I just literally, I was raised in an upbringing that I worked hard. Both of my parents worked hard. Um, I had two jobs from the time I was 14, always in the working class and always providing for myself, for my family or my loved ones, and vice versa. And I was raised to have those values and morals and goals. And then when you decide to make a life change of leaving an industry that I was in love with it. Like, I loved every minute of it. I still miss it, and it's actually a bit of a void for me. So then, when I started figuring out who am I and what do I want to be when I grow up, like I mentioned, um, I knew I was to be still of service. I knew that
Mhm.
that made me happy. I knew I was passionate about that, but I knew that I could not go down the same path that I had already been down, for various reasons, especially mental health. I face a lot more now, when you deal with tragedy as much as I had done. And I had been through a divorce. I had been through another hard relationship, and so forth, and a single mom at times. And it was just, where am I going to be? But what am I going to do this time around that's going to be different? And I could say that I remember I was teaching self care, and I really was never good at it. I was always good at helping everybody else, but not myself. And I think many women and many individuals, especially in the industry, are the exact same. I have a lot of respect for the industry still, and the people that are still being of service in every facet of public health or emergency services and management. And then now, even my business is in wellness and self-care, and loving who I am. And that was probably the biggest reality. Was I loved who I was, but um, I loved being of service more. And then I was not in it anymore. So then I had to figure out, how do I love myself? Who am I? What do I want to be? What do I like again? And so, it's almost like you mentioned time, you know, I'm going back 30 years. Like, what did I like when I was a teenager? What did I like when I was in my 20s? Like, you follow the path of going to school and going to college and going to university, or, what is next for you? And you just kind of step into these pieces, and I just knew, and it kind of unraveled. Well, this time I had choices, like choices of, do I really like this? Do I want to do that? And then actually, oddly enough, it kind of unraveled in a way that is so geared to my spirit and my energy, that it probably, what I'm doing now is more myself than I ever did within 25 years of the industry, because I see it differently, because now it's a choice. I didn't feel like I had a choice for as long as I did, because I just was, living and breathing what I was doing. And that was okay. Like, I have zero regrets. But now it's a matter of, if I don't feel that something's right for myself, and when I say feel, like, my body genuinely will say to me, no, Tara, that doesn't feel good. Don't do it. So
Mhm.
the intuitive side is very much, and I'm into very much energy work, as a Reiki practitioner. Um, and my master's I'm doing this summer as well, so I'm excited for what's more to come. But I can say that letting it unravel instead of being in control, and literally surrendering to the fact of, you know what, just let it be, let it unfold as it's supposed to, and time's going to happen anyway. And you know, like, you're not in the driver's seat here. You know, you can try to do whatever, but I did that, and I burnt myself
Mhm.
out, and I had more than one stress leave, and you know, I had to do a lot of healing, especially dealing with the level of calls that I did. You know, I've done everything from an ice storm to three different pandemics. So
Mhm.
you know, it took a really big toll. The lines got blurry both personally and professionally. And now I'm in a space that I honestly can say I love who I'm becoming, who I am, more than I ever imagined I could. And that's kind of exciting. You know, when you've been through a lot, you've seen a lot. I tried going into another industry, even with my transferable skills after I left, and I couldn't find happiness. I couldn't find happiness in working for a corporation that treated people awful. I couldn't find happiness in, you know, working for an agency that, you know, said one thing and did another under occupational health and safety.
Mhm.
Um, and I had done a lot of great work, so I wasn't willing to spend the rest of my life not loving what I was doing. And I
Mhm.
really wish in our 20s, or, you know, for the future children or the future generations, I really wish, if I was to give that insight, I know for my daughter, I say that now, like, take your time. Like, don't
Mhm.
go and do something that you're not going to love,
Mhm.
because it's not worth it. There's too
Mhm.
many things in today's world, and life is so expensive, and life is really hard in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So, you know, just enjoy it, because so much more happiness and so much joy comes from doing things that you love, and being a part of those. I was really, really fortunate for the careers that I've had. And I am extremely grateful to the Canadian Red
Of
Cross
course.
for what I, you know, got to be a part of. You know, one of the blessings, and for our listeners, Linda, as you and I've said before, you know, that's how you and I met.
Mhm.
Was in that industry, and we switched roles a few times
I was
and
gonna
covered
say,
for each other.
take you for the job.
Yeah, um, and looking back at the piece, I was always trying to get into more wellness by the end of the career, and a better work-life balance after, you know,
Okay.
almost 20 years, and now I can say I'm doing that. Like,
That's
to
great.
and it's so exciting. So the trajectory
Mhm.
was definitely the game changer of leaving an industry that I was so passionate about, that I loved like nothing else.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then it left a void. I actually was diagnosed with an adjustment disorder,
Mhm.
because I really could not figure it out. And I remember even other managers and I were chatting like near the end of my year, and or when I was leaving, and I was like, I've done all I can do. And,
Mhm.
you know, now it's like, why am I feeling so anxious? And a lot of people, you know, don't last 20 years in that industry, because
Yeah.
no, it's hard. And
Yeah.
so once you kind of figure that out, and the trajectory opens a door or a path where you can literally just follow a path or a pattern of sky's the limit, and don't control it, just let it find you. That's been probably the last over a year of my life, which for someone who literally had to be in control of disasters for a living,
Mhm.
um, you know, it's been quite um, admirable, remarkable. I don't even know the words. They're
Mhm.
just so exciting to literally wake up in the morning and think, it's just going to be a good day. And if it's not going
Yeah.
to be a good day, then we're going to do our best to turn it into a good day.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be another day after that. And we're going to look at the time, and the days are going to fly by. And, you know, it's really, you know, kind of how it unfolds.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think
Okay.
it's been amazing. It's been an amazing ride. There's great things happening. You know, I'm really, really happy for the skills that I had learned over the years for so long. And
Mhm.
then to put them to work in a capacity to help others heal, and mental health wise or trauma wise, or even just relaxing, with
Mm-hmm.
a spa service, just feeling rejuvenated, and or even just being present, listening to them. It's
Mm-hmm.
or sitting and having a tea, like that's just great. um
Mm-hmm.
I always got jealous when we were leaving the industry, where our volunteers got to really work closely with the people in the community versus us as staff.
Yeah.
um and they always got, as our one volunteer Guy always would say, the warm and fuzzies, and I get to have that every day.
Yeah.
um yeah, I get to see change every single day in a great way. My business plan is going to take us across Canada. It's going to take us into the UK. There's books that are coming up. We launched our first retreat today, which is in Newfoundland, which I'm so excited to do. It's a different part of Newfoundland than I've already been to before. I never, like, I kind of
Mm.
dreamt about it, but now I'm living it.
That's
And
awesome. Yeah.
that's pretty exciting. Literally, I can say to my 20-year-old, "Okay,
Mm.
you got the dogs. I'll see you in a week."
Yeah. So I want to stop us here, and we'll go forward, but
Sure.
I want to back up for our listeners a bit and talk about a few things. I think it's important at some point, because you and I have been in the industry and we've both left it
Mhm.
on good terms. They were
100%.
fantastic jobs.
Yep.
Just something in us was calling us to pursue otherwise.
Yep.
So I do want to touch on wellness in the emergency service industry and the
Sure.
trauma that. So I want to get there, but I'm going to pack that in a little box and we'll come back to it.
Sure.
But were there catalysts? Were there moments? Um, I know for myself, there were moments where I hear, there was something happened, somebody said something, and it's like, oh, yeah, I gotta change, I gotta go, or like, what were, can you talk to? Because you were a 911 operator as well, were you not?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was that for the first for 4 years, almost 5 years. Yeah, before the Canadian Red Cross. So I
yeah.
was with the Ontario Provincial Police as well as Peterborough Police as a 911 operator. Um, and it's funny when I look back at both industries. Well, I mean, there's the similarities is right. You're always responding.
Hmm.
You're always on fight or flight. And that's kind of after 25 years where the anxiety came from. I had high adrenaline cortisol jobs. So, that definitely matches my energy, and it definitely
Hmm.
matches my adventurous side of my personality.
Hmm.
Um, but these things have a long impact on you, that you have to heal from. And if you don't heal from them, they stick with you. And when I say that, like, I can literally feel like I was dispatching the day of 9/11 in Aurelia.
Hmm.
And, I was answering 911 calls, like, 911, what's your emergency? And literally cars were stopping on Highway 11 or 400, or, we had calls coming in and TVs were on and so forth. So when you work in these industries, um, that's just one example. I can tell you the adrenaline rush that comes from doing a pursuit as a 911 operator, or talking
Hmm.
someone out of suicide. Um, even someone just asked me the other day, like, what was the most memorable call that I ever
Hmm.
did? And mine is not a pleasant one. I still can see visually, because when you're a 911 operator, you don't have a lot of closure at the end.
Yeah, no.
You take the call, you send it off to the dispatcher, and this is how they did it, like, back when I was there.
Hmm.
And then you're done. Like, you don't really know what's happening or anything like this. Well, this call really affected me, that I worked in Aurelia, and then being in Peterborough, when I drove home, I just took a different route because I wanted to see where this car accident took place. And so I traveled down that road, and I could actually see the spatter from
Mm.
the fatality. And this was a young fatality. We're talking teenagers, or a teenage driver of its cousins, and they all died.
Mhm.
And I couldn't get it out of my system. So I had to, like, I know it may sound a little morbid in a way, but I just felt like I needed a closure. I needed to visually. But now, 20 some years later,
Mm.
it's like, oh yeah, no, it really sticks with you. And then there's calls that even as an emergency advisor or manager coordinator, that in that world was so remarkable from culture. I remember even my very first call, I was 3 weeks into the job, and I had it was a very diverse cultural call. And I was from Peterborough. We didn't know a lot about culture or
Mm-hmm.
anything in
Mm-hmm.
the urban center. And so I just thought I was following the rules, and totally wasn't, and fed them the wrong kind of food and
Okay.
everything else. And it worked out in the end, so it was all good. But you learn so much even from the amount of refugees and all the situations I dealt with there, the indigenous culture, and having a teepee and running the operations in Saskatchewan with 1,000 people underneath one roof as an evacuation center.
Mm-hmm.
um, or even British Columbia, like they all the calls stand out still to this day. And one in particular was a woman that we gave glasses to, and just the ability to make one phone call to an optometrist to say, this woman just lost everything in a house fire. Can you get her an eye doctor appointment? Like, can you get her a new set of glasses for me right now?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yep, I'll have that ready within however many
Yeah.
minutes. And I can still feel her hug me. And it's so funny because when you do emergency preparedness presentations like I used to do in the community when I was facilitating all of that, or even when I was a facilitator for Emergency Management Ontario, um, and we would do the basic emergency management course when I facilitated for them. Some of these calls were always great to have, especially on the preparedness, and you end up taking them in a way that is it's I want to say it's life changing how you look at the world. And even to the story of this one couple, they had money in the bank, but they couldn't get their money because the
Mm-hmm.
bank they used didn't have an actual like office or space, because I think it was like PC Financial or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to get something, you had to make a 1-800 number, but then she lost all of her identification in the fire, so no one could
Mm-hmm.
verify who she was. Whereas if it was a local bank and, Susie at the teller and she could verify you're who you are,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
totally, totally different. So there's just so many life lessons that you were able to take away. And when you think of 25 years of that industry,
Mm-hmm.
even I remember the ice storm in Toronto. Oh my gosh, I think that was what, 2013, 2012. I can't even remember exactly, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember the hotel that I stayed in and the artwork on the wall, and
Mm-hmm.
just the little things. Even someone was mentioning the other day about the life that I've led and that I
Mm-hmm.
was very lucky to be a part of. And hands down, I will say
Absolutely. Yeah.
1,000%. Like,
Of course.
I was in the industry when it was just, you didn't really need a university degree necessarily to get into it at that time.
Change it now. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Haiti happened and we were out there rolling pennies. So, but
Exactly. Yep. Real many of those.
yeah,
But
and
there's
taking those fake checks for the kids that rolled their pennies and brought in
yeah.
their
Yeah.
bottles. So, it's changed a lot, but still such great work, such a great organization. And I'm just so blessed and thankful that I got to say I was a part of it. And then now to be able to heal and go through what I've gone through to figure my own stuff out after you leave an industry. A lot of people, my dad's a retired policeman, and working for the police in a different capacity for the years that I did, a lot of people in the industry suffer after they leave because they're so used to being busy. They're so used to being of service. They're used to being useful. And
Wanna
that,
yeah, that's where I want to touch on is
sure.
what is some of that um, mental health um, what are some of those mental health things that yourself or you know people have to um, are healing from. I remember when I left, there was all that trauma that I had listened to for so many years. And I thought I'd leave and move into my next chapter, and it was going to be just a smooth transition. And I I hit a wall when I stopped. And I realized that I had held all that trauma that I heard, I had held it.
You probably
And,
suppressed it.
well, it just, I hadn't released it. And so I had to sit for several days and literally every story that came into my heart, I had to appreciate it. I had to release it and then go on. And I literally had to let each one of them go until I could
Mhm.
move forward. So, yeah, can we just talk about the like,
Sure.
what did you go through mental health wise that,
Oh,
that are you're working through or have worked through?
yeah. Well, I mean, the latter of my career, and one of the reasons I actually decided to hang up my hat was I had gotten diagnosed with anxiety and depression. um and then maybe not even a year later I had gotten diagnosed with ADHD at like 47 years old.
Hmm.
So I kind of joke and I say, all right, well, it's a superpower then, because like that's pretty much how I survived, likely. Because you didn't know, and then you had to figure out what does that mean? What exactly are these mental health pieces, and how did I work through, and how did I get through it all? And so I did a deep dive. Like when I say I healed, I deep dove into community agencies to help me heal. I took 10-week therapy courses. I learned what ancestral trauma was. And when you really learn about those things, and the why you are the way you are, or why you have kind of gone in the path that you have gone in. For me, my lineage is all of service.
Hmm.
And until you are facing it yourself, you like, I didn't know, you know. I didn't know why. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, yes, my great grandmother literally came from Scotland as a midwife. Oh,
Mm.
so, there's a lot that you learn about yourself that make it a lot of sense. I went into, and like I had mentioned, I had gotten diagnosed with an adjustment disorder because I couldn't function. I couldn't, I was paralyzed at times with anxiety ridden. I really didn't know how to interact in certain ways. I couldn't let go of certain feelings, certain triggers. And then a constant void of attachment because I was always busy. So I know that for a lot of people, when I was trying to figure out for the first while, I thought I was just going to go back into the nonprofit world. And I thought, oh, I love the nonprofit world. I do, because people are different. It's a different way of life. And I was like, yeah, and I'm going to go and I'm going to help these young girls, and I'm going to help this, and I'm going to help that. And my doctor would look at me, and my best friend would look at me, and they're like, what are you doing? You're going to do it all over again. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh, I'm like, yes, no, they're so right. And these are the healthy boundaries that I had to learn to put in place. And you really have to fulfill yourself. And I can say that honestly, especially having a dad that he's a retired policeman for 30 years, and then he went into a 10-year career as a car salesman, and still he's 81 and he's still active and busy. And so you have to learn who you are, spend the time with yourself to see how you feel, what you feel. um don't judge yourself, be kind to yourself, and just know that it's okay to not be defined by any of these labels, and you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as
Yeah.
you are open, and this is the key piece, and this would be my key advice of it. You got to be open to healing, and know that it doesn't matter that you have to heal, because I know people that are, retired military police, and so many friends still that worked with my dad, or um I had worked with over the years that were in the industry. And once you're being of service, once you've seen a lot, because I mean, imagine what the firemen see or the firewomen see. Imagine what the nurses have witnessed and not witnessed. And that could be anywhere from abuse to anxiety themselves. So everything that I had learned, and when I was becoming a practitioner for Reiki, and then when I got more certifications, because I didn't go into any of the stuff that I'm doing blind. I went and got certified in everything. And I like, my favorite thing to do is an indie head massage. I love it. You're
Mhm.
sitting there and you are seeing the central nervous system switch. They're calm. And a lot of the clients that have come to me, because I have a trauma background, they'll come to me because it's not the same as going somewhere else for a massage or a spa service, because genuinely I'm going to handle it differently than, say, someone else that would be an esthetician. They don't have the same background. They don't have the same experience, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So once you figure out the crisis intervention side of it, like I got certified again 20 years later, like I did when I was a 911 operator, like a couple of years ago, and I went and took nonviolent crisis intervention because I
Mhm.
knew that I was at my bottom. I didn't want to live anymore. In
Mhm.
2024, I was so depressed and I was so sad and I couldn't figure it out. And I hit my rock bottom mentally, physically, financially, everything. And I was driving and I just wanted to drive into the river. And I mean, if you know Peterborough, we've got a beautiful, like
Mhm. We do.
beautiful Trent Severn waterway. And I'm driving and I'm just like, that looks better. It looks easier. And I
Mhm.
knew that was a red flag. And I knew that it was a moment. But if that was a moment for me after I had been through everything I'd been through professionally,
Mhm.
that I needed a support system. And I got my support system and I sought the help that I needed to seek and got the diagnoses. And that's where, dealing with that
Mhm.
um, was huge for me. And even sharing
Wow.
this like tonight with you, and I know you and I chatted the other day with it, but I actually, one of the biggest things of why I chose 911 yourself, I
Mhm.
chose it almost 10 years ago now.
Mhm.
It was around my 40th birthday, and I was already going out to Calgary to do a project for the Red Cross. And I went into a two-day workshop. I wanted to write a book on wellness, and I wanted to write a book on self-care and a how-to, because I knew one day I was going to need it. I just felt it. I just knew I was going to need it.
Mhm.
And here I was hitting my rock bottom, and I feel like I finally hit jackpot for myself in the
Mhm.
sense of healing myself, being a better woman, being a better friend, being a better mom,
Mhm.
showing my daughter, my nieces that it's okay to not be okay. And my number one statement is that I never will be defined by a mental health label or title or diagnosis.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't want to be. I think that around mental health, we need to change the stigma around it and not be afraid of it.
Mhm.
I think that we need more kindness, more love, more compassion in the world for those.
Mhm.
And I think coming from that nonprofit background, like you and I have, Linda, it's so remarkable to see the tragedy and the trauma like we saw. Um, and then to take that piece where you literally eventually have to face it. And I said this while I was there, was that I saw what all of the staff went through, and I never wanted that for myself. And that's when I got out, when I got out. And
Mhm.
then it didn't matter because I had already been through everything, right?
So you've been through it, yeah.
Our body had already, our
Yeah.
body keeps score of the things that we face.
Mhm.
I looked into being a spinal flow practitioner because I wanted to help heal the trauma in our spine through
Mhm.
energetic work. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to help people not feel that anymore. And
Mhm.
just those pieces. But in order to stay in the industry and the wellness, it is, the bottom line is self-care. One of my favorite hashtags that I use is self-care is survival, and I wholeheartedly believe that if you cannot take care of yourself, I mean, we preach this all the time in emergency preparedness, is that everything is at home first before you can go and respond to anything else. And that's the truth. If you can't handle it yourself, you can't do others. And being a practitioner now in that industry, or in the industry that I'm in now, I know when I have to take care of myself. And I do that before I do anything else, because
That's good.
I want to
Yeah.
walk the truth. I want to practice what I preach. Um, you know, and I think being aware of that and seeing firsthand what it did for me when I was at my bottom, and to see where I am now, like launching my first wellness retreat in another province.
Mhm.
I'm proud. I'm proud of that. And if I can do
Mhm.
that, anybody can do that. Like seriously, it's just a matter of being open to healing, loving yourself enough to give yourself grace to do the work.
Mhm.
It was not simple, it was not easy, um, but it is attainable. And I think that if we've got more of that safe space and we allow people to be who they are and what they need to do for themselves, if
Mm,
I can be a part of that change, then I'm going to be excited to be a part of that change. And I had said that one of my missions was I wanted to try my best. I mean, I don't know, my dreams get bigger, and sometimes I can't keep up with myself. But
mhm,
that superpower of ADHD, maybe.
mhm.
Um, but I want to change the occupational health and safety side of things. I think that we need to be there for each other. um, Red Cross always gave me that. I will honestly say that, yeah, it was a lot hard. We did a lot with not so much. But when you knew you were at your limits, you kind of definitely knew that you had the safe space to do so when you needed it.
Yeah. So let's jump into that. I'm just cognizant of
Sure.
our time here, but let's just jump into that for a short bit because there's other stuff to talk about. But I I see a lot of industries that self-care is a bit of a stipend that people that clients or sorry employees get, and then it's use it for what you want, off to the spa. I'm not saying spas are great. I know you do. Your work is a lot deeper.
Yeah.
You're not. Okay. People tend to like. We'll go off for a facial. I sort of liken it to going on vacation. You go on vacation, you feel great while you're away, you come back energized, but that only lasts a little bit because you're going back into your same old patterns.
Yep.
So I think self care, especially in those high trauma, high stress industries, has to change.
Well, it has to be a lifestyle. So I think
Exactly.
that's the biggest piece, right? So you've got to know who you are first and foremost. You've got to understand what you're in. Like if you don't feel normal, if you don't feel happy, if you don't feel joy, like it's that self-awareness piece, right? And just be thought like I think when you get into the high stress jobs and the high cortisol side of things, you're on pilot mode. You're almost on pilot mode when it comes to being a mom. You're on pilot mode of being a woman or a man. You're in pilot mode just living. This is the expectations. I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to be all of these things. I'm going to do all of these things. And then at the end of the day, you wake up and you're like, I'm done. Right. So
Mm.
that's where the burnout will come in. There probably is lots of signs. For myself, there were many signs, and I thought I was invincible. Probably.
There's the thing right there. And
Yeah.
are we not, as a society, not um, building that resilience before our employees burn out and leave?
I
I
think
don't
that
see it in wellness programs
I think
that
that
I've seen.
no, I would agree with you. I haven't seen that, and I think it also doesn't just come down to um, occupational health and safety. I think it comes down to leadership. You
Absolutely.
have to have a leader that believes in the mental health aspect. Mental health is real, so I'm not going to say, yes, you're going to have these diagnoses, but every single person is different and everyone faces everything differently. So if you face everything with the compassion, I mean, I'm not saying don't go do your job. And if you're not capable of doing your job because of X, Y, and Z, then that's just the reality.
Mm.
Um, but I think that in all fairness, the job hazard, that can come with these high cortisol jobs, you've got to recognize that that's real. And then you got
Mm.
to realize that even if it's just within the profession, don't forget their personal lives. Like tragedy of losing, for me, it was my final stuff. It wasn't just because of the profession I had. I had a mother-in-law that died of cancer, brain and lung. I had dogs that, you know, well, you have dogs equally, but I mean, I had just had corgis and then I had 10 puppies and three of them died. And, you
Oof.
know, I had changed career after 20 plus years. And then I went to a government agency, and the government agency that I worked for, they didn't believe, or my manager did not believe in mental health. So she didn't support me.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
cultural change. Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
and so with self-care now, I think we need, the leadership needs, and I would almost say the word must. They must be a leader with a belief system of people skills, not just technology. I think too many businesses go and say, well, they look great on paper, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not about that. People
Yeah.
management is not about that. You know, you and I both were in an industry
Mm-hmm.
that we probably were in one of the hardest industries for people management because we were managing volunteers and, you know, some staff too, but volunteer management is hard. If you can motivate
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's not getting paid, it's a totally different kettle of fish. So, you know what I mean? So, um, yeah, no, you have to be resilient to understand it, and you have to have a lifestyle that is so well balanced in today's world. For anything. Sorry, those are the corgis. Is that you have to genuinely um have a safe space when you go to the job or work site,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you know when you go home it has to be just the same,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
you have to be able and ready to face those things, um you know, in either one of the industries and stuff. So
Yeah.
I really would love to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being an entrepreneur now is a lot different, so I get to kind of make my path, I guess you could
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah.
And definitely I have that big heart that sometimes I give too much at times. Like I love giving still. But I
Mm-hmm.
would really, really, really truly love to see the corporations of the world, the government of the world, you know, not have that side of it. Like people are people and they're gonna go through stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
life is not like it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago. You know, I remember 25 years ago or 20 years ago when we were first looking, it was, you know, it was called disaster services back then, not emergency management. And we would maybe get one or two large scale disasters in a year. By the
Mm-hmm.
time I left, it didn't stop for over 3 years, like nonstop,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
nonstop. And, you know, the fire calls were over 100 in like a whole eastern region, like nonstop.
Yep. Yep.
It wasn't even manageable for the volunteers that we even had. So, you know, I think that was my biggest awakening was I wanted to be a part of that change when you can see people with such good hearts as volunteers making a difference. Well, the people that are getting paid, then they really should be making a difference equally so in so many different ways. You know, we need to make sure that the volunteers are always taken care of, and we did as volunteer managers. I
Good.
know I
Yeah.
did.
Yep.
I know my volunteers would say the exact same thing, and I'm still
Yep.
close to quite a few of them. But I think that the management need to take care of their people, and
Mm-hmm.
not just in a way of, you know, Monday to Friday, you know, sit down and have that conversation. You know, what are you doing for yourself? Sit down and have those
Yeah.
wellness committees and saying, hey, we're
Yep.
going to bring in somebody and they're going to do the self-care chats. Or they're going to add something that just
Mm-hmm.
allows you the break, you know, even taking the 10 minutes away from the computer,
Yeah.
don't work through your lunch. You know, all those little things, they add up and they make a whirlwind of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know, and so I think those are, I really, really hope that future forward, we're going to see more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we can be a part of helping in any way and capacity, I think the more the better. Um, you
Yeah.
know, we're in a
Yeah.
totally different day and age, especially with homelessness and after COVID. And I mean, that was my third pandemic for crying out loud. So that was my biggest one that even affected me both personally and
Oh,
professionally because everybody was working in my own office. So
exactly. But I think, I just look when I started in the business, there was no, you and I both worked in psychosocial support. There was no mental health. I'm talking from us for our clients. There was no such thing as mental health. And I remember when mental health started coming into the international scene and then
hmm
slowly started coming into the national scene and local. And,
hmm
like we both finished on working with for that psychosocial support. And it was going even more onto the mental health side when I left. Like it was even more so that you had to be fully you had to have a master social worker because it was so, and I think that just says something about the society that we live in, and that we're more aware of trauma, and
Yeah.
we're more aware of how we can help somebody build resilience. But that doesn't mean we do it for ourselves. And I think
Oh, for sure.
that's the important thing. So I
Oh,
want to
absolutely.
move on. I want, before we zoom out a little bit, if you could, um, I had a question, but I think I might just
Don't
three
dance.
things I want to I want like where you were and where you're at now. The
Uh-huh.
three big shifts, not necessarily with time, but within yourself.
Mm.
Like where you were when you left and moved into what you're doing now, and sort of where you're
Mhm.
at now. What are those three big sort of, or two, or one, or however you want to share, shifts in you?
Now I will not, I won't take care of other people before myself.
Mm,
I could say it took me a really long time to get that. Like a long time because the people pleasing, the guilt I felt, the
mm,
remorse if I didn't do this, and especially being a volunteer manager, like I used to answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night or email at
mm,
10 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. I
mhm,
remember, having a piece of paper beside the bed or, I always carried a pager back then. And I think at one time in my life, I had three cell phones. And, if the volunteers were willing to get up at 2 in the morning, then there was no reason that I was getting, my salary and I was there for them. I wanted to be there for them. So, I still would do that again. I don't get me wrong. I would totally do that. But what I would do differently is, and I have done differently now, if I could turn back the hands of time, I would have done it better for myself
mm.
then.
Yeah.
I would have put bigger and better boundaries. I would have probably been way more bold about implementing and holding
Mhm,
myself accountable. I think by the end of the career, I started doing that more often, which I was really happy about. Like, I didn't want to work 60 hours a week anymore, so I maybe did 40 or 45.
mhm,
So I really tried to get in that 8:30 to 4:30, which never was possible because I always loved being a duty officer too. So, um, you know, that was just, yeah. But
mhm.
I think that would be my big thing is now I have boundaries. Now I don't feel bad anymore. Like there's
That's a good one.
the remorse is gone. I literally don't have it. I do not feel guilty for taking time to myself
Mhm.
at all.
Nice.
Um, I don't think that's selfish. I think that it's necessary. I think once you've gone through enough of what I've gone through in my life, both personally and professionally, um, I should have done it many, many years ago.
Mhm,
So now I don't. I refuse to. I also don't work myself till I'm dragged. Like until if I'm starting to
mhm,
feel, you know, I need to breathe. I need to break. I
mhm,
take the steps. I do feel bad sometimes, especially if I have a client.
mhm,
Um, but if I, really can't pull it together or see something, um, this I just finished my first quarter and it was quite successful in a lot of different ways, and I'm very proud of that. But at the same time, I'm tired. I just
mhm,
did four different shows in I think 4 weeks or something.
mhm,
So I also got to remember I'm 50. I'm not 25 anymore. So
mhm,
a little bit of those pieces.
mhm,
But I think that would be like number two would be that yeah, I really've got the boundary. I at least have a routine now, which I never had.
mhm.
Um, I never had a morning routine. I never like I mean I did in the sense of I got up in the morning and I got my daughter to
Wow.
school and da da da. But
Yeah.
now I genuinely have a true I meditate, I walk the dogs, I pull an oracle card for myself, I
Mm.
journal. Um, I truly have a routine down. And it
For
doesn't
you.
matter for me.
Yeah.
Um, that is my time. It doesn't matter who's calling, who's texting, if I like veer off a little bit, but I
Nice.
still come back
Nice.
and I hold myself accountable to that routine.
Mhm,
Um, So my mornings I've gotten down pat, which I'm pretty darn proud of. And it doesn't matter
Mm,
where I am. Like if I'm at a friend's house or if I'm in a
mm,
different country, not country, but different city or,
mm,
wherever. I'm going away for girls' weekend this weekend. So,
mm,
all of my stuff, it's already going to be packed in my bag, that kind of thing.
mm.
So that would be huge,
Yeah.
because I never did that before. Um,
Mm,
at all. I don't
yeah.
actually, I've changed a lot. And I don't know if it's because of having anxiety and I'm really sensitive now. Um, like loud music, no,
Yeah.
don't
Yep.
do it. A lot more wellness music, a lot more zen. I love a lot more simpler things.
Mm.
If it's
Plants. Yeah.
if it's not, oh my gosh, I've fallen in love with animals. Everyone keeps making fun of me because I'm just like, I saw alpacas on the weekend and now I want an alpaca farm. And
Mm.
so,
They
but
spit.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
they didn't fit. I got hugs and kisses on the
Oh, there you
weekend. So
go. There
it
you
was so
go.
lovely. But anyway, but no,
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
I
really
think
good to
those are the
hear.
great things, is
Yeah.
that you need to put things in place for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, I've always had this, but now I'm not scared to do it, is I really just genuinely, I used to jump headfirst into everything, like sink or swim.
Mm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still I still do that in a way that is a lot more healthier choices. Now I don't make unhealthy choices. Now it is
Yeah.
only a healthy choice, and whatever that looks like, it is wellness based.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people will say, or I'll say, highest good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever it is, if this is going to make me a better person, then heck yeah.
Let's
Doesn't
do
matter
it.
what it is. I'll find fun in it, or I'll find whatever's meant to be. I think I still have a
Mm.
lot of my, old qualities. But
Yeah.
now it is just genuinely, I have created it to be a sound lifestyle. Whereas, well, let's say here, October of 2024, over a year and a half ago, I wanted to drive off into the river.
Mm.
And today I'm pretty darn proud that I just launched Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Big steps. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
not
and
that
there's not
long.
really
Yeah.
any, not even that, there's not even good cell service there.
You don't want cell service.
I know.
Um, so would I be correct
Hmm.
in saying that perhaps at this time in your life, that you value your time to a degree more?
Oh gosh, yeah. 100%. I love being I love just being chill, or like listening to
Mm,
music or playing a game, or I mean, and that's pretty big for me because I don't sit still too
mm,
often.
mm,
But in the sense of my value, I probably
mm,
value who I am more than I've ever valued.
yeah,
I think
nice.
more of myself now. And I
Yeah.
think, I loved myself before, but again, I was on pilot mode. I don't think I really knew who I was in a lot of ways because I was always just fixing and saving and doing.
But I think that's really important is that you can look back with pride, even though there were things that needed to change. You
Yeah.
can still look back with pride and a job well done and service well served. That's a big thing, as opposed to looking back with a negative
Oh yeah.
eye to it. It's just changed, it's evolved, and this is where you are now.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were some tough times in between to get you from one place to another, but isn't that how we often grow? Sometimes we need
100%.
sometimes we need that
Yeah,
kick.
I always say to everyone the acronyms, and I laugh at the acronyms because we had so many with Red Cross, and
Oh my gosh.
there's so many. But the acronym that I live by now is FEAR. So FEAR. So many people are scared of that, and especially if
Yeah.
you have anxiety. So if I have fear of something now, I change it into the acronym of face everything and rise.
Mm.
Because I think my growth comes from working through those jitters and feeling great about it after.
Oh yeah.
And it
Yeah. Yeah.
always comes out like those are the moments where you're growing the most, or the best, or it's going to just show you. and having faith, the blind faith now.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had it, but I never lived it, if that makes sense. Now I live it. Like I live and breathe um all the time. Even when I used to travel to whatever part of Canada,
Mm-hmm.
um now I probably am more in tune with my own guidance, and
Yeah.
my own spiritual belief system, that that grounds me. um there's no sense of loneliness like there once was. I remember going to a restaurant in Victoria, BC, and I was just like, this is so awesome. This is an Italian and da da da, and I was having a great old time. But it got lonely. And
Mm.
now I don't have those same lonely feelings anymore.
Yeah, it's alone. Yeah, there's a difference between alone and lonely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, um,
Hmm.
so what are you doing now? I know you've talked a bit about it, but can you share with us and the listeners here where, yeah,
Sure.
tell
Yeah,
us about
so
911 yourself. We know you're
yeah,
going to
so
Newfoundland.
I am going to Newfoundland. I'm super excited. So in 2020, well, way back when, I had a logo. It was more like a shield. I had a big transformation. I lost almost 100 pounds in 1 year. Worked out like a fiend, 3 hours a day, almost at the gym. Anyway, so I had a big transformation, turned that into becoming a boot camp specialist. And I thought back then, just by changing the way you looked and kind of um how you feel and so forth. And I thought that was good enough, but it's
Mm,
not the truth in any which way. Like, I mean, body image dysmorphia is a thing.
yeah,
I gained all the weight back because I was basically emotionally eating all of my feelings,
yeah,
especially figuring out that now I have anxiety. Now I had all of these diagnoses. Now I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't have the one thing I had constant in my life, and that was a career that I truly loved for almost 20 years. So
yeah,
my identity was kind of gone, right?
yeah.
Um, during my healing and what I was going to do and what I want to be when I grow up, which is now, I kind of want to grow up, just joking. But I decided to rebrand my logo into a rising phoenix, with two different colors. One is purple, one is blue. Purple being my daughter's favorite color, blue being mine. And I kept the same name, and I put a little lotus flower on the tail of the phoenix, and I called it 911 Yourself Holistic Wellness. And so I got certified as a Reiki practitioner in 2025. And then I just started doing a lot more, learning about my lineage and learning a lot more about, where my family came from and who I was, and a deep dive of what I loved and what I wanted to do, and, what I was passionate about. And then just taking little bits and pieces of your own mental health and how do you create a lifestyle of who you are,
Mm,
and how do you still feel great about the work that you're doing? Because when you find something that you love to do, like I did, it's, you know, it's gotta be something that you love almost just as much.
mm,
And so anyway, so I got the Reiki practitioner. I got certified in doing vision boards through Digital Canva. I had a coach in that from the US, actually. She was lovely. And so I started with both of those, and then I just kept, what else is next? What else am I going to get certified in? And I went into massage. I went into indie head massage, and then four different massages, and um, like I didn't even market anything or launch
mm,
anything, and all of the people just kind of fell on my lap. And like I said, it was one thing after another. So I
mm,
launched my business in Peterborough January 1st. I have a space in number 9 North Floatin' Wellness Spa here in Peterborough.
mm,
And then, well, as I did 20 some years of traveling anywhere in Canada in a mobile way, I
mm,
decided to kind of take that approach too and expand.
mm,
So every month, I pretty much launch something new for the company and the business. This is our first girls retreat weekend coming up. So my swag, and we've got matching hoodies and jogging pants and ladies' weekend and these mugs that are all together. Anyway, it'll be a great time, and we're painting, and I think there's wine maybe involved, and line dancing, and just having a great time, hiking. I think Pilates was on the menu at one point. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember all of it. I know there's a video dance party and maybe cowboy boots, but we'll see if that actually takes place. Anyway, so I wanted to be again that change, and so what do I love,
Mm-hmm.
and how has it made me feel, and all of the skills that I had, and I can do this for other people. So a few International Women's Day, March 8th, I went and did over 3 hours of free massage here in town, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
lineup.
Nice.
And then when you started to see the change by changing just your central nervous system by having this scalp massage, and
Mm-hmm.
I just fell in love with doing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember my mom even did it as a child. So like when all these little memories come up, I was like, yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to do this. Like it feels right.
Yeah.
And I got involved in meditation and love every minute of it. And then breath work, same thing. It's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And so then a friend of mine has a resort out in Newfoundland,
Mm-hmm.
and we launched the retreat for Victoria Day weekend. It's 3 nights.
Nice.
So yeah, so it's cabins. It's literally right at Grossmore National Park, the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful scenery, like just completely resetting, two or double occupancy cabins, that kind of stuff. I started with the March break. I do a wellness mini March break camp for youth, so grades, or I should say ages 11 to 15 or 16. And I
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to make jewelry, or I vision boards, affirmation cards, affirmation decks. We even taught the girls how to do oracle cards. They had a blast with it.
Wow.
Um, in my time with Red Cross, I always was part of whatever conferences we were doing and everything like that. So I was like, wait a minute, I can probably get these sponsored, or who doesn't want to help little girls learn to love themselves, learn how
Yeah.
to take care of it? And why not instill that at a young age? And so
Mm-hmm.
we started doing that. And yeah, we are going to be running that still for free every first Wednesday of the month for about 90 minutes.
Nice.
So it just keeps on growing and keeps
Lots.
on
Lots
going.
going on. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
doesn't stop in a good way. And the
But
fact that I can say that I have healthy boundaries at how much is on the go,
mm,
um, is pretty fantastic. And I mean, I don't have one free Saturday until July.
yeah. Well, and you said something earlier, and I think it really sits here is you learned to let life unravel instead of being in control.
Yep.
And what you're talking about here just seems to be like, yeah, you've really done that. You've
Yeah.
really stepped into that and allowed that to happen, and it's amazing. So,
And I've just been
um,
open, right? So,
yeah,
and not even open in the sense, like open in the sense of things just keep showing up in a really great way.
exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, so like Andy Head, well, I went for a massage. How that even fell is I was
Mm,
actually going to another place for a massage, and I had a head sculpt done on myself. I was like, I freaking love this. I want to learn how to do this.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so there's more stuff coming, which is super
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm actually training right now with a spiritual leader, starting the end of the month. And so I will be doing Oracle deck readings for Angels and Ancestors by Kyle Gray. I'm super excited because he's from Scotland. I launched that even in Port Hope for the Northumberland Highland Games
Nice.
uh, in June. So yeah, there's so much fun, and at the same time, I'm really proud of it because all of this has been funded either by the support of, my family, or a couple
Mm,
of loved ones, and definitely just hard work. I've been
mhm.
waitressing. I went back to waitressing at my old
Nice.
stomping ground, and I've enjoyed every minute of it's so nostalgic to still be able to do those things. So it's great. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with it. So
Oh,
funny how it kind of comes full circles.
absolutely. Oh, well, and to see the joy in that instead of, oh, I have to slug away to do this, to be able to walk into those and I've waitress myself and absolutely loved it. My feet
Oh,
maybe not right now, wouldn't love it, but my muscles, but the joy of being with people
hmm
has been, and getting to know regulars, and to have a great customer like to have somebody remember your name and
Yeah.
have their eyes just light up because you remembered their name. That's
Oh yeah.
always it. It's like I just remember that, and it was like, this is just so much. This is
Oh yeah,
life,
no.
and this is communication, and this is it's everything
It's
in
everything.
a job.
Yeah, and when you get to look back at the the I'm at a place where I can reflect and connect the dots and
Hmm.
see how it all unfolded and
Yeah,
is unfolding now. It's beautiful.
absolutely.
It is, it's kind of dreamy. I get the goosebumps just thinking about it in certain ways, but um, for someone that used to have to be in control all the time,
Yeah.
to literally just be excited to not be in control,
Hmm.
is so so exciting,
Oh,
and surreal a little bit, but
yeah,
yeah, no, it's and just be so relaxed and easygoing. This, my attitude now is like, meh, it's just part of the adventure. But I think a
yeah.
lot of that also comes from doing emergency management for as long as I did, because I always had to be flexible and nothing
Oh,
ever went like we thought it was going to. So, meh,
absolutely. Mhm.
yeah,
But it sounds like your intensity has evolved into excitement. It's still the same energy is there,
yeah,
the same level of energy, but it's become this excitement and this joy.
yeah, yeah. Now I
Mm.
embrace it, but then it
Yeah,
was stressful as heck,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And I think if I stayed in that longer than I did, I have friends that got so sick from the cortisol, from the stress, and
Mm.
and that's the truth, right? Science is shown,
Mm, of course.
what can happen if you don't deal with it properly or have the healthy boundaries in place.
Exactly.
So being aware of that at this stage in life too, I think it's quite meaningful.
Hmm.
And then, kind of being in the driver's seat of being an entrepreneur and how much I can handle and how much I can't. I'm
Yeah,
thankful. I'm thankful for the hard times
absolutely.
because they're making me enjoy the good times even more.
Even more. Exactly. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a wonderful conversation, and we'll definitely put your business information and contact information
It's so
in.
easy too. It's 911yourself.com.
Yep,
Simple.
easy to do that. We can do that. Yeah. Any final words before we close the door on this episode?
I think that just for me, I mean, I'm so grateful, Linda, that you asked me to be part of this. So I think that's the biggest thing. One of my favorite books, and I share this with everyone because I think that if it was called 3 Feet from Gold, and I had back surgery years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn to walk again after 5 weeks, and it was hard. And so I had a trainer, and she gave me that book as a gift,
Mm-hmm.
and like to borrow hers kind of thing. And I had to buy it, and then I bought so many copies because I end up giving them as gifts to sometimes to people and stuff. But I think that looking back at the relationships that you can have in this lifetime and
Mm-hmm.
remember how you treat others
Mm-hmm.
is going to be so important moving forward in life. And even our friendship over the years and our professional working and the fact that we were able to connect, you know post retirement, we'll call it,
Mm-hmm.
and still be in a different journey but a similar journey, and just feel like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I think more people need to do more of that, and I think even doing these kind of talks and so forth is so important because it's still community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't really listen to a lot of music. Um, I listen to podcasts all the time. So,
Yeah.
whatever it
Music.
is, or
Yeah.
Audible or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So I think just hearing that story and coming out the other side, and that you can go through the hard times and still see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
15 months ago, I didn't have that, and now I
Yeah.
do. Um, and that's really important to take away, not only for myself, but for others to hear, especially when I had over 20 years of witnessing tragedy.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
then, when we were with Red Cross, they always had that personal disaster assistance program. And I'm really thankful for the resilience that it taught me,
Mm-hmm.
because when my time was there, when I hit my bottom, if I don't know if I would have had the same resiliency or determination or or even what it is now. Now I have like, I mean, I've always been determined in a lot of ways, but now it's a different kind of determination yeah, it's a new
Yeah,
force. It's kind of
exactly.
exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I have to say, call your friends if you need a meditation. Because
Yes.
you called
You
me a
bet
few weeks
that.
ago out of the blue and
Yep.
said, "You've got a great meditation. Can we do it now?" And I
Yep.
was like, "What a great idea." It's just like, just if
Good.
you need it, call your friends if they do meditations, just instead of listening to one on, you know,
Yeah.
online, just call somebody that does that and say, "Hey,
Sure. And I
can you
think it's
do a
important.
short meditation?" And that was just like, what an awesome idea that was. So
Well, and I think that
thank you
those
for that.
pop-ups, I call them pop-ups all the time, or pop-up bubbles. And then people need to understand that the importance in wellness, especially, it doesn't always have to be money. It can be an exchange. As long as there's
Mhm.
some kind of exchange,
Yep.
then that's good karma.
Yep.
And, I do a lot of bartering. I think my daughter's pretty excited because, my hairstylist, she likes massages. But I think that barter, if you think back to the early days, the,
Mhm. Of
Western days, lots of people bartered for milk or
course.
food
Of
or,
course. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever the heck it is. Well, that should be no different in today's world.
Oh,
If you're
circular
hurting,
economy. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
need the help, or you need to feel better in those moments, well, then that's maybe where you reach out to a wellness practitioner and say,
Yeah.
can I have whatever? And you know
Yeah.
what, if someone's in the industry, or
Yeah.
in, the industry of service, we'll call it, then they got a good heart and they're doing good work. And
Yeah.
just remember that, it's not about money for us. No, definitely not. But the pure fact of that offering, I can remember how many people in their,
Mhm.
I have so many situations where, I remember, especially up in Kawartha Lakes, so many people would bring us cookies, or they
Mhm.
drop by and do that kind of exchange. Right? So no,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you remember that and point that out,
Yeah.
because
I
that's
am.
a good reminder where, it's always like, yeah, sure. You know what? If it's money or barter or something else, just be
Whatever it is.
grateful, and definitely recognize that karma is real, and that karma will go a long way. And I
Yeah.
think the last year and a half of my life is proof that the right people have always shown up, and they continue to show up. And the
Exactly.
people that are not supposed to be there, well, they're falling to the wayside, and that's not a bad thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for saying yes to coming and being our 49th episode. And to those
Woo-hoo.
that are listening, just remember that at Inspire Me Forward, we really believe that we actually inspire others when we share our stories, and we end up sharing this collective connection. We really let others know that they're not alone in this big, beautiful world that we all share. That sometimes the courage it takes to share one story might be the very thing someone else needs to really open that door to their heart, to a brighter tomorrow for them. So that's really why we share and we do what we do at Inspire Me Forward. We always ask that you share it forward, because you never know who needs to hear these words that were shared tonight and or today, whenever you're listening to this, and the wisdom that was shared in this episode. So on behalf of myself and Terra, stay well, stay connected, and stay inspired.